Nothing will ever change what happened.
You're wrong, because I will change it.
Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of Time Travel Talk. Do any of you watching think if a company in the future acquired a time machine, they might use it for profit to send people back into the past to experience disasters firsthand? I don't think anyone would be that foolish, but the two movies I'm going to talk about here are based on that concept, and as far as I know, they are the only movies about time-traveling tourists. So the first one is called Grand Tour: Disaster in Time, but it's also known as Timescape. I'm not sure why this film has two names, but it may be that too many people were involved in the decisions, which also included canceling its release in theaters and sending it straight to cable TV and video rental in the year 1992. The movie starts out with a flashback of a married couple driving their car on a very snowy country road, then colliding with a horse pulling a sleigh, causing critical injuries to the woman in the passenger seat. We are then introduced to the man who was driving the car, whose name is Ben, and learn that he and his only daughter are now attempting to renovate an old house into a bed and breakfast inn, which is located just outside of a small town. One day, a small bus arrives at the still unfinished inn with an odd group of passengers insisting they want to stay there instead of the hotel in the nearby town. Flashing a wad of cash, Ben reluctantly agrees to let them stay, but immediately begins to wonder about these strange people who, although claiming to be tourists, it's pointed out to him by the bus driver that none of them have a camera. One of the tourists displays a sense of empathy towards Ben, warning him to take his daughter and leave the area. And along with some other clues, Ben actually comes to the conclusion that these tourists are indeed time travelers. After the town is devastated by a large meteorite and a follow-up explosion at the local school, which kills his daughter, Ben is given one of the tourists' time travel devices, which is disguised as a simple passport, and goes back 24 hours initially just to save his daughter, but after an interesting encounter with his other self, the two Bens figure out a way to save many others in the town. The alterations to the future by doing this are only vaguely touched on, like this woman, her family, and many others who originally died by the meteorite now get to live on. I thought the most interesting aspect of this movie was how both Bens worked together, and there was no made-up cosmic rule, sometimes used in other stories, that prevented that. However, I believe that once the future Ben explained what was going to happen to his other self, he would have then vanished as the timeline would be rewritten, where he no longer would have followed the path that led to his going back in the first place. Instead, they had the time-traveling Ben continue alongside his other self until after the danger had passed, but the writers came up with a somewhat weak and confusing way of getting rid of him, as we couldn't have two Bens continuing to live out their lives. The very last scene of the movie tries to imply that Ben uses the time-traveling device once more to go back and save his wife. But that doesn't make sense because, again, there would be two Bens existing in the same time. Overall, I thought this movie was pretty good, and if it would have had a bigger budget, some cast changes, and some better editing, it could have been a much more successful film. Still, I think it's worth watching, and it's available on DVD, or it's also on YouTube. Next is a film that was specifically made for television and debuted on the American cable TV station known as TBS in the year 1999. The movie starts out with an emotionally troubled ex-TV reporter named Tom Merrick remembering the incident when he was with his cameraman and sound guy filming a live segment on a fire at a power plant. They both wanted to get out of the building, but Merrick insisted on more footage, convincing them to go up a staircase for a better vantage point. While following them up, Merrick is distracted by a small metal object that hits the metal staircase. He then looks up to see a man staring down at him, and at that moment, his crew is killed by some large falling objects. Merrick quits his job, goes into a deep depression for a while, then eventually gets a job with a tabloid newspaper, and literally on his first day while researching disasters on a computer, he discovers an amazing anomaly of what appears to be the same man at 3 different disasters that took place many years apart, but his physical appearance is unchanged at each disaster. His excited boss books him on a flight to Washington, D.C. to get copies of the original photos he viewed on the computer to confirm the anomaly. Coincidentally, while on that plane flight, he spots the man from those photos. And while that man uses the restroom, Merrick searches his satchel and finds a brochure that advertises time trips to past disasters. One of those disasters is the flight he is on, which will soon be involved in a mid-air collision, killing everyone on board and, I'm assuming, all those on the other aircraft as well. He and the mystery man get into a scuffle which causes the contents of the satchel to scatter on the floor, one of which is a gun. So Merrick grabs it and essentially makes himself look like a crazed hijacker. While he heads to the cockpit with some of the crew, the mystery man grabs his belongings, goes into a bathroom, and uses his transporter device to get off the plane. Merrick forces the pilots to change course, which saves the plane from crashing, but he's still arrested and interrogated by the FBI. After phoning his co-worker Elizabeth and asking for her help, 2 strange people enter the interrogation room and escort him out, but he is able to get away from them while still in handcuffs. We find out that these 2 people were sent from the future to stop him from creating any more changes to history. While getting away on foot, he meets up with Elizabeth, and they eventually end up on a subway train that coincidentally has the same mystery man on it, who is there to experience a runaway train that is supposed to crash due to the operator having had a heart attack. While the train accelerates, Merrick confronts the man, who actually calls himself a tourist, and he and Elizabeth take his time-traveling device. After realizing they can't stop the train, they separate the main subway car from the rest of the cars. This causes only that car to continue at full speed, which soon crashes, killing only the mystery man because, for reasons unknown, he refused to leave the main car with everyone else. Finally, Merrick and Elizabeth meet to get to a Coliseum hockey event to prevent a tragedy that is supposed to kill about 11,000 people, including his ex-wife, her boyfriend, and his son. While driving there, one of the 2 strangers from the future kills Elizabeth when they stop at a gas station, while also believing the explosion killed Merrick as well. They leave, and Merrick continues to the Coliseum, but it's too late for him to save anyone, including his son. Later, he uses the time-traveling device they took from the mystery man to go back to before Elizabeth's death, thereby preventing that and ultimately saving his son and many others at the Coliseum. I've left out a lot of details that are touched on, like how altering the past was having a major impact on the future, according to a person in the future that the 2 strangers were communicating with. Also, there is this very significant scene between Elizabeth and Merrick that specifically points out the conundrum with altering past events.
Merrick, if this is all true, maybe we shouldn't interfere.
Then 11,000 people will die.
I know, it's just that the guy from the photos, he warned us about interfering. Those 2 that are after us, they are willing to kill or to risk being killed to stop us. Maybe somebody we save will go on to cause something terrible to happen that is much worse than Cops Coliseum coming down.
I don't see it that way. If those 3 people are from the future, then yes, their past is set. It can only go down one way. But our future can go an infinite number of ways. Any one of which may be a whole lot better than the world they're from.
We're corpse.
Overall, I think this is a fairly good made-for-TV film that is available on DVD, and it's also on YouTube. The noticeable difference between the two films is that Grand Tour is more of a slow-paced drama, while Thrill Seekers is more action-based. Do I think time travel tourism will ever be a reality? No, but if you're looking for a different take on time travel, these films are worth watching. If you're someone who still purchases DVDs, I have Amazon links to these movies below. Thank you for watching, and I will talk with you all next time.